Today, we're going to do a set of PowerPoint slides on UI, aka user interface. And part of the reason why we're doing this is we were talking a little bit about UI earlier in the week, and it's actually become a topic that I've been discussing with clients more and more recently, as you'll see, because I think that right now there is a predisposition or just a lot of people want to do essentially a chat UI. And so they want to be able to chat with AI models. And I think that, of course, ChatGPT, is part of what is pushing that concept. And, and then also it's like, why did you climb Mount Everest? Because I could. Why did we do a chat interface? It's because we can. We really couldn't leverage that interface in the same type of way before. Obviously, we've seen chat interfaces before, but like using them to control things in the same type of way, and it's all over the place, right? Not just ChatGPT. But I wanted to kind of highlight that just because, let me see if I can say this right, just because ChatGPT is the number one thing pushing the AI concept right now. And ChatGPT is a chat interface, and we have LLMs, does not mean that chat is the best way at all times to interface with AI programs. And we'll see some other examples. And I think some of this is sort of, when you see it, you'll be like, oh yeah, of course, because like I'm not going to show you any revolutionary new interface you haven't used before, right? I think all of us on these coaching calls, we've used hundreds of applications each, right? Different websites, different apps, different software, packages, and they don't all have different user interfaces. But there's a lot of variety out there. And I think that it is good to remember that there are these different user interface options, and some ideas of why you might want to use some with the limitations behind them. And also I know that, this kind of ties into, our conversations earlier in the week, where there were a number of people on the call who, and probably who are on the call right now, who are interested in becoming AI consultants, right? And part of being an AI consultant is obviously like domain experience in AI, right? But there is this very difficult tightrope to walk with your clients between giving them what they want and giving them what they actually need, because they will tell you what they want. Typically, a lot of times they will tell you what they want, but then be unhappy with it because you actually need to deliver what they need, right? And a lot of times what they want is a chat interface, right? Like, oh, I want to chat with it. And it's like, well, is that the best choice, right? And I think also it is important to know, like, sometimes, you could have a hybrid approach, right? Where it's like, aspects of it can be natural language prompt input in addition to other dials and knobs and buttons and doohickeys and thingamabobs. You definitely need some thingamabobs every once in a while. Okay, before we dive into user interface, let me highlight some of the newer people on the call, and then some people. Georgetta, I haven't seen you in a while. Welcome back. But let me see. Tina Devine, are you new to the coaching calls and to AI Profit Boardroom? You can either turn on your mic or drop a message in the chat, or just chill if you want. Just chill. That would be my choice too. Jan, are you new to coaching calls? I can't tell. Harder when people don't have profile pictures. Okay. Have been here before. Okay, that's fine. If you've been here before, then we've probably already asked you what brings you here. Cool. And then we will get started fairly soon. I'm trying to think. There hasn't been much AI news. I don't know how many people care about this, but that Michael Burry shorted NVIDIA, and I don't know if I'm going to say this right, Planeteer, two major AI companies, and I wonder if that is they say the AI bubble's coming, or the AI bubble is going to burst soon. I feel like it's a year or two away, but I see the pieces mounting. And you know what? Like our talk today is trying to lay the groundwork, in its own small way of trying to help with that bubble. Because part of the reason why we're going to have an AI bubble is this over-reliance on chat interfaces. Instead of, again, like way too many companies are trying to get the AI that they want instead of the AI that they need. And as consultants, or people who are providing solutions, providing them with the solutions that they actually need in a way that they can interface with well is going to make AI more productive and profitable instead of, when you look at the MIT study, 95% of these projects aren't providing an ROI. Not universally is that a UI problem, but it's not the models. I'll tell you that much. The models are good, and a lot of it can be UI, right? Like your ability to easily interface with these models is a large determinant as to whether or not you are going to get a good ROI off your project, right? Like if you are not able to control these models in an effective way, you will not get a return on investment. All right, let me see what we got in the chat. So Dan, have been here before. I'm interested in know how can I do best SEO for my website and for websites for my clients. Okay, I will touch on that really quick. Yes, I'm new, can't talk right now, but want to listen in. I have some AI experience. I want to learn more automations for my work in marketing and partnerships or an e-commerce platform. Great. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we do a lot more hands-on of like automations. Yesterday, in yesterday's coaching call, we went over image to video, end-to-end automation. I think, and I've been teasing this for a while, next week may be the big HeyGen end-to-end automation pipeline for Thursday. Maybe. We'll see. I think it's going to be either next week or the week after, depending on if anything else comes up. But I want to try out, I think, something that involves both HeyGen and 11 Labs so that, theoretically, with the pipeline from this week, the last few weeks, we've been working on that one, and then the HeyGen 11 Labs one, you would have the pieces to really, go forward and make your own video content one way or another. Although we did highlight yesterday that, a 15-minute video is a 15-minute video, that it could cost around, I think we got like $45. I think we also said maybe you could do it less if it wasn't so AI video heavy in your entire video, if you used more HeyGen spokesperson. But, like these videos are not going to be free just because you're having AI do it. And then SEO for your websites and for websites for your client. So SEO, very important. However, one of the new fads is AEO. I think that's what we're going with. Yeah, AEO. That's what somebody else said before. Making sure that your websites not only show up on Google, right? That's probably the number one reason why people do SEO, is that now can you get your website to show up on ChatGPT? And I think I haven't done too much with this, but when I was working on this a little bit before, Bing, I think shockingly is very important for this and being well set up for Bing. And there are other aspects of formatting your website and your clients' websites so that they show up in on LLMs, right? And like ChatGPT and things like that. And so that could be something that you look more into. And SEO, we do have a few N8N automations that deal with SEO. And, I think that there is essentially the two things that you can do is, especially with these N8N automations, leverage the, say, like SEMrush API to utilize that for analyzing content, and then using that content analysis and an LLM to update the content for a website, right? So there's that. But I also know one of the big aspects of SEO is not just on-site SEO, but off-site SEO and getting links, quality links back to your website. And off the top of my head, I can't think of a good way to have I mean, I guess there are ways to have AI do that theoretically by, I guess like if you had like a way, like there's like off-site like things where you can contribute content to it, right? And then you could have an LLM write that content for you and then have that link back to your website or to your client websites. I guess that's a way of having AI help. But yeah, I would check out some of those end-to-end templates, see if any of those look good for you as far as SEO. Okay, let's get to UI. Here really quick, I am going to upload this so that people have it. And then this presentation will also be available on whatchamacallit, on AI Profit Boardroom along with this recording. But I also do like to make sure we're almost there. Come on, G Drive. Let's go. Link. Boom. Okay. So here is the that's the presentation I'm about to do. Boom, boom, boom. And then as always, here. Okay, cool. All right. So designing interfaces for AI tools. A lot of this is, we're ourselves focused on AI tools and automation. And so this is, directed towards that. However, this is true for, like these same principles existed before, AI. I mean, I guess the only one there were, and again, like there were always chat interfaces of some sort, right? But now it is just so much more prevalent to want to control things with chat in a way that you did not before, because we have LLMs and agents that can then take that natural language and execute fairly effectively, actions and tool usage from there. But yeah, so like this is, I think again, like this becomes an afterthought at times. But then really once you start going down this path of putting together a tool or designing a tool for your users or even for yourself at times, right? This starts to become a bigger and bigger deal, because if users are having trouble, again, if they're having trouble with using the tools that you have built, what's the point, right? What am I using this for? And, and again, like I think that chat is being overused at times. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe everything will be chat pretty soon. I mean, prompting is one of the most important skills to have right now. But I think that, and again, I think also potentially a hybrid of, sometimes you need to have prompt along with some other options in there for control. And part of this is that AI's behavior is variable and unpredictable, right? And so I think this is really good. Like, can you make AI feel magical or chaotic, right? Because and this is really, I think, another thing that made me think about this is yesterday's N8N automation that we were going over with image generation and video generation, and then seeing it's like, well, it's going to generate these images, it's going to generate these videos, they're not always going to be right. So if I'm going to put that together and present that to a user, be like, here, I have a system, it's going to generate images for you, it's going to generate scripts for you, or it's going to generate prompts for images for you, it's going to generate prompts for videos for you, then it's going to generate the images, then it's going to generate the videos. This all sounds great. What happens when they don't look good? When the image is not what I wanted and the video is not what I wanted, right? Like, how do I go back and fix that? And how do I get that information presented to me in a smart way? And that is, part of the solutions that we're providing people. Because again, like these models already exist, right? Like everybody has access to these APIs. Everybody has access to these open source models. And so really a lot of what we are doing is creating a flow that feels good, that guides people on a path, that sets them up in the right way. And a lot of times, often I give this advice to people when they're designing a solution, an AI solution. It's like, is this better than ChatGPT? Like, in what way is this better than ChatGPT? And sometimes that answer could be in the UI, right? In the way that it takes people step by step by step through things and guides them through it, and almost at times can sort of educate them to the process they're going through and how they should be thinking about and working their own projects, right? And I like this idea that like the good UI contains the chaos without killing the creativity, right? Like how can we turn this into magic instead of chaos? How can we let people still be creative in the way that they want to be creative? And I think that is, I think people will talk about AI as being a creativity killer. Because, well, now AI can just do it for you, right? And I think it could be the opposite, right? I really think that, and maybe I'm going to be wrong about this one too, but like all these people who had very creative ideas and who were very ambitious with what they wanted to do, didn't have the resources or maybe didn't have the talent. And I know that like some people hate that idea. It's like, well, now untalented people are going to be able to produce things that they didn't have the talent to produce. It's like, yeah, but they had the creativity to do it. Like, and is that wrong? I think that's like a major question that we are about to start to answer going forward, right? If you didn't have the talent or the resources to do something, but you always had the creativity, now you can leverage AI with the right UI, right? IUI to do it. So, and again, why chat became dominant. It does feel natural, right? I think, and that's the part that got ChatGPT to be so like big, right? It's like the naturalness of it, the way it feels, like similar to what you do, right? Like you're chatting with, you used to chat with a person, right? Now you can chat with software. Like that's, so enticing to us. And I think also like the fuzzy or exploratory tasks, right? Where it's like, and that is really part of the usefulness, I think, with LLMs that like gets swept under the rug. And that's like why you want to have agents is that fuzziness, right? Where it's like we don't exactly, like we don't want to exactly know what we're doing here. Like we're kind of close, right? We're 90% of the way of having the right thing. Well, okay, now it can be 100% because that LLM will just sort of fill in the gaps for you or understand your intention and then be able to execute what you want, hopefully, right? Hopefully, as you've probably noticed, by prompting, you don't always get what you want, I think it's the Rolling Stones, but you get what you need, or something like that. A very want-need dichotomy today. But chat hides its own limitation and encourages unrealistic expectations. I wholly agree with that, right? I think that it itself, like, that tendency, right? Like that hallucination, right? Hallucination, I always kind of brush up against that word where it's like, it's really guessing. That's what it's doing. It's just made a wild guess, and that's based on its limitations, right? That like the guess got way too wild and can, give people this idea that like, oh yeah, you can just do this and it'll be just so simple, right? I think that like the most unrealistic versions of AI that we see are based on chat interactions, prompt interactions, right? Oh, you just prompt it, give it one sentence, and it'll make an entire app for you, right? Just prompt it and it'll write an entire book for you. And then not really, right? I mean, supposedly there are 3-year-old kids that are making multi-million-dollar apps and multi-million-dollar commercials just by prompting. I've never seen that in reality, but I've seen it on social media, which is close enough to reality when chat works. So although I have been pretty negative about chat all day today and prompting, I mean, it is obviously a very useful tool, despite everything I'm saying. And, different times when it does make sense, brainstorming, tutoring, and companionship. I think those are really spot on, right? Because of the nature of what they're doing, right? And when you're not doing something like this, I mean, there's probably other use cases, right? But if you think about all of those, right, and like it really makes like companionship makes a lot of sense, right? And for I think a lot of us on the call, maybe like we really want to leverage AI for its productivity, right? And I think for me, part of the reason why I initially was not as interested in ChatGPT when it first got launched is it was being pushed for more of its companionship abilities, right? And I was like, well, it'll tell you a joke. It's like, I don't want to hear its jokes. Like, what do I care, right? And so I like to leverage it for its not really for its companionship, aspect. But there are plenty of people that are, and I think that this is a growing sort of field, especially even if you think about it like not like straight companionship, but like I guess maybe I do, because like actually I've probably talked about this before, where so I'm a journaler, not always and consistently, but like when I'm obviously an overthinker, right? And when I'm overthinking really hard, like I've just found that like journaling is really good. And I have actually shifted my journaling over to ChatGPT. And so I journal to ChatGPT, and then it gives me feedback. And I guess, I mean, that is companionship at that point in time, right? And like, I don't think about it as my friend, you know, I'm not really losing touch with reality. But I think that that practice of journaling, of getting your thoughts out, has always been, you know, as well documented as being a great way to handle all those extra thoughts. And then now having something that will give you a little bit of feedback, even if you don't care about most of it or you already understood some of it, I think it is a great feedback loop for you. Now, and then not to disparage anybody, some of these folks who are trying to marry, you know, or are in a deep relationship with ChatGPT, that might be a bit much, you know. But then tutoring and brainstorming, you know, when I talk about vibe coding, right, and the way to vibe code and the way to use LLMs to vibe code, it's very brainstorm tutoring centric, right? Well, I mean, not very, but it's definitely an aspect of how I think you should be vibe coding, right? Is you should have it tutoring you at times on the different techniques that you're working with and how to set things up. And you should be using it to brainstorm your ideas and have that back and forth, right? And so, you know, I really like this idea, you know, when variation is a feature and not a flaw, right? And then again, also low stake tasks that do not require perfect repeatability. I think those are really good things to think about when you are designing your UI, right? So if it's like, hey, this needs to be very repeatable and, you know, I need to get it to work in a specific way, then it makes more sense for me to not be chatting. And I actually feel like this is, I wish I feel like there should be a better interface for video and image generation, right? And this is an idea, or like kind of a thought I've had for a while, which is I don't think that chatting and prompting for image and video generation make the most amount of sense. It actually should be more structured and tiered with like specific options, right? Where you can choose like, oh no, here, I want this style, right? And then I want, what's my main subject, right? And then what's my, you know, lighting? What's my this? What's my that? Like really, it should be more structured instead of more conversational, so that you could potentially start to, and this is probably where it's going to get to for like more professional use cases, like when people are using it for, say, like big studios, when they start shifting over to potentially using more photo and video generation and things like that, there are probably going to be interfaces that aren't just chatty and prompty, right? Where there's going to be an aspect where you choose and maybe you can put in there your ideas of what you want, but it has to have more structure to it if you're going to end up with, like you're saying, like repeatability, or when the stakes get higher, right? And you can't just like have an image that's like, that's kind of right? You need to have more of those fine-tuned controls. So when chat fails, precision work, right? So exact specifications and zero margin for error, right? As you probably noticed, like chat, you know, there's just too much hallucination that goes on with that. Multi-step workflows. So yeah, if they need to be executed in a specific order, right? Compliance environments, right? Where these are heavily regulated. Now, I would say like some of this is starting to shift, right? Where like they are trying to build LLMs, right, that are more compliant. And so we'll see, but like for now, for sure, there's a problem there. And then that repeatability, right? Sometimes you kind of can, like we've talked about this before, is temperature, right? So like by increasing the temperature on your LLMs, on your LLM calls, it makes it so that they're not repeatable, so that you get variation every time. But then like when you are building an agent and you need it to be way less variable and way more specific, you can decrease your temperature and have it be more deterministic. But even still, you know, it is doing a probabilistic guess as to like what's supposed to come next, instead of, you know, really having a like a real sort of specific input, or, you know, a specific output, essentially. Core principles. As tasks become more structured, predictable, or high risk, the UI must take over from chat. Yes, the model should act inside constraints that the UI makes visible. Absolutely right, right? Like that when you want that predictability, when you need to get better structure, part of that is by providing that structure and that limited choice set, so that you get more structured and predictable outputs. So one is structured forms, right? And that this is essentially what I was sort of saying with the image generation and the video generation, right? Where instead of just prompting the output, the prompting the system, you would have more structure in what the people were choosing and have that be the input. You know, I like to use Stable Diffusion, and that's a combination, right? Where you do have fixed fields to input your prompt, but then you also have like various different aspects of it that you can control and add control to. I feel like it could definitely be better than that, but like that's one of the versions I think that things are going to be shifting to. And I think that there is also probably you would see like like everything's on a spectrum, right? Especially me. But you know, there is that spectrum. I think the more specialized, or the more somebody has a mastery over a domain or over a tool, the less they're going to want a chat, and the more they're going to want that fine-tuned precision, and then the less ability or sort of domain expertise and mastery that somebody has, the more they're going to be interested in a chat, right? And so that's why, like if you're building these professional tools and you're working with people who do have that domain expertise, that ability to chat with it is not so great, not really. So there's, you have more traditional forms for UI, so either text fields, drop downs, toggles, and these are required inputs. So you can see this in like a Google ad setup or insurance quote forms. I think those are two great examples. And again, like when you have clarity and specific parameters are necessary, then you need to force the people to give you those specific parameters, right? To get that clarity. So these reduce hallucination, right? Guaranteed completeness, because they have to fill out each portion of that form, right? So you know that you're getting input into each different part. And then also, yeah, like that clarity where it's like, that's another aspect where people now are starting to understand what matters, right? Because, well, I had to put this information in. And this is, again, like even within this, making sure that your form makes sense, right? And that you're getting that information. And that even within that, right, like there are different options here, right? Text fields, drop downs, toggles, right? Required inputs, right? Like, should it be a text field or should it be a drop down, right? Should you be able to toggle it or not, right? And like, this is really just dependent on that information that you're getting and, the way in which it needs to be chosen, and does that make sense, blah 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 blah. But yeah, like I think that even in this, just saying, hey, I'm going to do structured form isn't good enough. Like knowing like, hey, we're setting up this structure and this makes sense for our model, our AI application to have this information. Creativity shrinks so a bit, right? Because now everything is constrained. You can't just do obviously like stream of consciousness inputs into it. Heavier design effort up front, like yeah, right, and like really much more intention. And that is probably why people also like chat. Just like, yeah, just do a text input and press send, good to go. And now say, hey, you might need 10, 20, 30 different input fields and toggles and different things. Ugh. Now I got to figure out where all that stuff goes. So that makes it a little bit less appealing. But again, if it's going to make everything go faster, then that makes sense. And then also double again, you could hybridize this version, right? So for instance, you could have people chat boom, chat prompt, then translate that into the structured form template, and then take them to that next page and have them check that to make sure that it makes sense, right? So sort of best of both worlds, or they have both options available to them to interface with it. I think this is, again, like probably going, you might start seeing this more and more, where you will have an AI application or any type of application, and they will have both the option for you to chat and let it go and just use the chat, or something that's more of a structured form. And I would say that's true of all these different things, like of all the other interface options I'm showing you. I think that what you will see going forward is a version where people can do one or the other, right? Where they can just chat. Again, it's so popular. Or they can use one of these other UI interfaces, or the chat fills out that interface and gives them the ability to check it. And users who want freedom may feel confined, especially again, like if we start living in a world where chat does become so prevalent that people may not be as interested in a non-chat interface. Step-by-step flows and multi-page guided sequences similar to TurboTax, Figma, app setup wizards. So this is like step 1, do this, step 2, do this, step 3, do this, step 4, do that. And perfect for complex processes that unfold in natural order, like proposals, onboarding, or automation setup, right? And I think that, again, like this is how I would do a image and video generator pipeline. Like if it was to generate a video at the end, right, I would do step-by-step flow, right? And I think that makes sense, right? Step 1, write the script. Show me all these scripts that it's writing. Give me a chance to revise those scripts. Step 2, turn those scripts into images. Give me a chance to revise those. Remake the images that I didn't like. Step 3, turn those into videos, right? Same thing. So in that way, you would want this step-by-step flow. And again, you could do a hybrid version of this in all kinds of different ways. What is a spolioid? No idea. I know what a wizard is though. Well, that's a pay year. Okay. Reduce the overwhelm. Yeah. Instead of showing everybody everything all at once, you take it step by step. Create that stable context. So, and I think that also helps. There's that clarity. Stop overwhelming. Give them that context. Really, and that helps also, I think, for the user and the AI, right? Where you should not be having all of this. Usually, right now, have it all being done by like one AI at once, right? Like my concept is like, hey, yeah, you really should not be just having something just generate videos. You should have it actually go images first and then image to video. That's my belief. And that level of structure, also it doesn't overwhelm, your whole system. It breaks it up into pieces so that it can perform better. Canvas and document editors. So this is like Google Docs, Figma, Photoshop, Notion, Canvas style UIs. So then, users are able to manipulate text or images or objects. The AI will revise or suggest enhancements. So this is really useful for writing or design or layout or content production. And as it's showing, again, like you can do this in more of a hybrid type of way. Let me just really quick check. How are we doing here? Okay, we're just on note takers. So very visual, right? Very visual. And you can get version history from this. You can point to specific sections and say, fix this. Manual and AI edits blend naturally without confusion. So like this is sort of also like, how I made this presentation was a similar sort of Canvas UI, right? If you've used Wix, I think, and these other like website builders, they have a very similar system. And I think it does help, like being able to plot things out visually like that and really see things in space. But again, it makes sense for more creative projects, right? Or something that has that layout to begin with. I don't know if it's as necessary to do something like that for accounting, right? So again, what is the best way for your users to interact with the system? Flow builders and automation editors, right? So this is Zapier, Make, N8N, UiPath, right? So we're fairly familiar with these. But that's not like the only place where you'll see these type of things. Essentially, these are node-based right? Systems, visual node-based systems, great for pipelines and agents. And you just connect these steps, and then it generates the output for you. And again, like this is, I've said this probably too many times. This now, if you look at end-to-end, is a hybrid model, right? Because it does have your ability to chat with it, right? Chat prompt to workflow, and then your ability to go in there and redo things with, you set it up yourself with these different nodes, these connections. Make system logic explicit and reviewable, right? So you can really get a sense of like what the logic is of a system and how things are connected together. Safe, predictable, and repeatable, right? I mean, that is part of automations, right? And the concept that you want with automations. Not every aspect of it is predictable and repeatable, but like the flow is predictable and repeatable. And perfect for workflows, it must be correct every time. I think, again, like aspects of it are supposed to be correct every time. It's supposed to follow the same flow every time, but portions of it are not necessarily correct every time. Command palettes. So these are, these are IDEs, right? And VS Code's command menu. Users issue short commands while AI fills in arguments or suggests actions. Ideal for power users who prioritize speed, right? So the hybrid interfaces, and this is what I've been talking about this whole time, right? Chat plus structure with one experience. You have the chat. We want that to handle your fuzzy intent, right? The things that you need a little bit more help with, but then it can convert those intents into forms, options, sliders, templates, or blockers. And yes, this is becoming much more of a dominant version of how people are doing things with AI tools. Provision and feedback tools, right? So like this is one of the important things to be providing to people if you're creating a solution for them. Side-by-side comparisons. You've probably seen this. ChatGPT does this, right? I don't know if Claude has ever done this. I think either GenSpark or Gamma does it. Pretty sure GenSpark does it. Yeah, GenSpark for sure does it. Whereas it'll show you two different versions and have you choose. Midjourney does this, right? I think you don't always have to do it, but it definitely has that option. Section level edits, right? Or targeted feedback for tone, accuracy, formatting, or specific errors. So like part of, one of the things that people love is this idea that you could have like reinforcement learning or feedback loops, or like, oh, the AI will learn over time. For AI to learn over time, it needs feedback from your users, right? And so having that way for them to provide feedback and, for them to be able to give edits at various points in the workflow. Guardrails and transparency. These are like, again, like we're not talking about specific types of UI anymore, but these are just sort of options that you should be thinking about, right? Required fields, validations, previews, clear parameters, prevent drift, show the users what inputs, rules, or settings shape the output, right? So like this is, this is just keeping them doing what you need them to do, right? And so like something like required fields, right? Like, and you've run into these before, where you filled out a form and it's like, nope, you need to make sure that this part is filled out, right? And that is part of the way to keep them from going off track, right? And then communication, explaining errors in plain language with actionable fixes, right? This is not always going to work. There's going to be problems. So you need to be able to explain the errors to them, right? This is supposed to be part of your user interface so that like they have a way of doing something. And the language on this thing is wild. Vanna Darvidly, Fam, Boy, Index. I don't even know what language that is. Chat is powerful, but rarely the final interface. And even again, if you're going to use chat, think about how else you want people to be inputting information, and what is going to be your dominant UI if that's going to be your dominant UI. Users need visibility, reversibility, and control. I really think those are three very important principles that should be part of your design thinking, and like things that you should think about for, again, like for your own projects or for your clients' projects, like going over those concepts with them. How do we make this more visible? How do we make steps in this reversible? How do we make sure that our users have control? And if we don't do that, you're going to create a rock, something that is just useless and nobody really wants to use. Structure beats chaos for real workflows. I think that's very strong. UI will determine the real impact and usefulness of AI tools. Absolutely, right? And again, The models are all out there. All that stuff is out there. Your job is to orchestrate the pipeline correctly and provide the users with an easy way of utilizing them. There is so much money that can be made, not by developing your own models, right, or training your own models, as much as just putting them together in a specific order and guiding a person through that order well, and then marketing that extremely well so that people use it. Okay, that is UI. Any questions? Any thoughts? Any feedback? Any ideas? People are just leaving the meeting left and right. Okay, if nobody had, you can ask questions about anything, I guess, if you want. Anybody has anything? Might give everyone like 10 minutes back of their day. Very quiet today.
I have a question.
Go for it, Elsa. Thank you. Ask your question.
Yeah, so what's the best practice to get close to what you want? Is there any prompt library we can kind of use it as example, especially those video generation is every time you do it, it depends on the model, you're burning credit, you know.
Right. I guess I don't, can you add, like, is there a prompt library for the video generators?
Yeah, say if I want to use Sora, which is free, Sora 2,
right?
But I try to prompt it as the result usually is really far away from what I expected, but I don't really know how to structure those prompts. I see some examples that they're really, really detailed, have camera angle and everything, but I'm not a professional videographer. I don't know those terms, how to prompt those.
So I don't specifically know of a prompt library. I mean, one of the things that I do, and you might want to try this yourself, is asking ChatGPT or Claude or whoever to generate your prompts for you. I think that that's a useful technique, especially, you know, trying to get what you're looking for, right? Which is just like higher level, better quality prompts, and that are going to give you, you know, something that's more cinematic, that's more interesting looking. I think one of the best choices is to have a LLM generate prompts for you. And this is also in the workflow, the edited workflow that we were doing on Thursday, part of that system, right? Where it was generating the prompts for the image generation and for the video generation. And, you know, I wasn't going to write out all those prompts. So I think that's one aspect. Two, video generation is inherently very, I don't know if the word's noisy, unpredictable for sure. Getting exactly what you want out of it is tough. I think that you see a lot of stuff on social media where people post something and it looks amazing, but was that exactly what they were going for? It's hard to know. And then also a lot of times part of the solution is to, you know, the other principle I brought up is to use images to guide the video so that you are starting off on a better point. And then finally, I don't know if Sora 2 has negative prompting in it. A lot of these systems do have the ability to negative prompt, and that keeps it from doing things you don't want. Right. And so negative prompting can be a great choice. And they have, if you look up like universal negative prompt for image generation or for video generation, people will post, it's not necessarily a prompt library as much as just like this prompt that people will use fairly often so that they can get higher quality images and videos. So those are, I guess, the different techniques, I would say. There may be prompt libraries out there, but I feel like it's probably just easier for you to just have ChatGPT create your prompts for you.
Okay, and then the other one is it's always good to give the chat a role to act, say act as a coach, business coach or something. Is there any library or list that the rules you can assign? Sometimes it's hard to come up with the exact rule you wanted to act.
Yeah, I think the same thing. Like you should have ChatGPT come up with that for you. Like give it, you know, hey, I want you to do this task. Come up with a prompt. Come up with a role for this, and then go and take that role and bring it into another interface. of ChatGPT or Claude or whatever. Sometimes what I'll do is I will have ChatGPT generate it for me and then bring that into Claude. And you don't necessarily have to just straight copy and paste it, but it will give you a very good sort of version of that role assignment. And you tell like, hey, I need a role description to give an LLM so that it takes on that role and answers in the appropriate way or something like that. I would like it to be a coach for this. And then it will design out probably the best version. Again, like this is how I do it a lot. I've never really used a prompt library before.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else have a question that they'd like to ask before we sign off for the day? Going once.
I have a question about vibe coding. Yeah. I tried to do a landing page.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which is there so many platforms. I'm not sure which one's the best one, close to free. I think we have some template, but it requires you to have a go high level account, which if I decide to use beyond 14 or 13 days trial, it's gonna cost $97, which is pretty expensive if I don't have any revenue yet.
Yep.
So I wonder if you have any recommendation for that.
To create a landing page for you or to host a landing page for you?
Yeah, create a landing page and also host it afterwards.
I mean, hosting, you're going to have to pay hosting fees no matter what. If you have a landing page, I don't know. Like, I mean, I use Bluehost, but like I've been using them. Well, it used to be Host Monster. I've been using that for like 15 years. I probably should just switch over to like GoDaddy or something like that. So no matter what, like if you're hosting a landing page, which is essentially just a website, you're going to have to pay a monthly amount, probably like something around $10, a month. I don't know if there's a way to get around that, just because hosting inherently just costs resources. And then landing page development and design. So I typically will get a template online. So there are websites where you can get a template. And for like a landing page template, again, it might cost you $5 or $10 to get that well-designed template. They basically have, if you look through website templates or landing page template websites, they'll have like almost any like template out there. Like anything you've ever seen, they have a version of it. And then with that template, I would then use the LLM to modify it and change it the way you want. You don't have to do that. If that's how you're going to get the best looking landing page, and again, you will have to pay an extra $5 or $10 to do that. You can have Claude generate a landing page for you. It won't be as well designed as if you got a template off of one of the template sites. And so it's up to you. I mean, you can if you just need a landing page to start, the LLMs, again, like I would use Claude over GPT. I just think that it can handle coding tasks better. And it'll code you up a template really quickly, or it'll code you up a landing page pretty easily, and help you with like connecting it to your email or whatever. But hosting is going to cost you something somehow.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. So if I get a VPS, I also want to do the local hosting for NNN. Is it safe to put both on one VPS and a hosting locally and landing page or whatever website maybe I will create later? Is there any safety concerns to
I've never done that. Like, I mean, I've never hosted a website locally before. So I don't really know.
No, sorry. I mean, host on the VPS.
Host on a VPS. Like, so is it okay for you to host the website and your N8N on the VPS?
Yeah. Yes.
As far as I know, that's not an issue. Yeah, I don't see why that would inherently be an issue that they're on the same VPS. Somebody else on here might have more experience with doing that, but like if they are secure independently, then I don't see why putting them on the same VPS is such a problem.
Yeah, I just read that the difference between the VPS and the web hosting is that the VPS, you kind of have to install your own security.
Okay, well, yeah, so that's an issue inherently with VPS. How much less expensive is a VPS? Like, what does a VPS cost per month?
The thing is that about the same. That I want to have a NNA hosted by myself instead of the cloud, so I don't want to pay
Right.
two, and then I'll have to pay a web hosting per month for the landing page or domain, and then I have to have a VPS for the NNN. So I just wondering if I can combine both to a VPS.
I don't know off the top of my head. If somebody else knows, they might be able to give you some direction, but like I've never really tried that. Yeah, here we go.
Okay, first of all, I have an answer regarding the landing page, but it depends on what you want to do. There are places like a school, if you want to build a community around what you're doing. I don't know if that's something interesting for you, but there's Nas.io, there's School, and then there is a WAP, which is a new one from Dubai. And WAP is giving away space for free, but they charge a transaction fee of about 13%, I believe, between 5 and 13%, so a sliding scale. I'm not quite sure how it works. I was on a webinar with them, but they're from my region. So is NAS. NAS is another one that's from my region. So it depends on what you want to do. And that's the first thing. What she wants to do. I don't know what she wants to do. The second thing is regarding the type of the prompting library. She can create her own prompting library for photography. She should watch some YouTube videos, copy it down, and then ask ChatGPT based on what her notes look like, what would be the right prompts. And that's what I would recommend. So these are 2 ideas for me, and I will put myself on mute again.
Go for it. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Barry. I think both of those are good tips and make a lot of sense. We are at the hour. I will see everyone next Monday. Have a great rest of your day and enjoy AI and automation and vibe coding and N8N and anything else AI related. Have a great one, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.